Stay tuned. Okay, so I see 6:02, so we should get started. Has everyone on the call attended a Discoveries in the Making presentation before?
Yes.
I know Michael hasn't.
Yeah,
So thanks for coming.
Huh?
Thanks for coming.
You caught me off guard there. What'd you say?
No, I just said that I know you're new to Discoveries, so welcome.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. So I don't have to give my long introduction that I typically do, but just to remind everyone why we're here, and just to remind everyone our responsibility. And when we generate new knowledge, it's our responsibility to share that knowledge. And it's easy to share, or easier to share when we're talking to people in our own discipline, because they understand the jargon, they understand our abbreviations, they understand what motivates the work. It's much harder to share our new knowledge that we're creating to people who are outside of our field. And it's a really important skill set to have. I am a member of the Government and Policy Advocacy Committee for the Society for Neuroscience. So most of you know my discipline is neuroscience, and I've been on that committee now for the past 3 years. And part of that responsibility is attending Hill Day and to be able to talk to our senators and representatives. And so when I go there, I talk to Senator Shelby, I've talked to Senator Jones and his staff, and to many of our US representatives. And so being able to talk to those kinds of individuals and to our neighbors, our next door neighbor, maybe somebody that we see at our church, maybe somebody that we see in the store, or whoever we talk to. Having that, I feel, is a really important skill and a sense of responsibility. So that's what Discoveries in the Making is all about, is to share new knowledge, share the discoveries that we are working on, that we're trying to achieve and why it's important, and to enlighten others. So our speaker tonight, Valene Garr Barry, is going to talk to us about her work. And I know she wants to answer your questions. That's also part of this, is to have a conversation and to have a forum where you can ask questions. So please, please don't be shy. You can post them in the chat, or you can just raise your hand and ask. And so I'm going to turn it over now to you, Valene.
Okay, great, thanks. So can I share slides?
Yes.
Okay, so I am going to go ahead and share. And I think I share this one. All right, so I think I know most of the people on the call. But if you don't know me, I am a fifth year PhD student in the Department of Nutrition Sciences, and I think I do some pretty cool stuff. And as any other scientist, whenever I get an opportunity to talk about what I think is cool stuff that I do, I like I jump on the opportunity. So when Kim and Dr. Krill asked me to do Discoveries in the Making again, I was like, yeah, sure. So you can see on my slide, I actually forgot again that I was going to do it and did not change the date on this slide. So don't judge me. But basically, this talk is going to be about the possibilities of bioimpedance in women's health. And if you don't know what bioimpedance is, or you've never heard of it, just think about it as electricity. So almost anywhere where I say bioimpedance, you can just fill in electricity, okay? And so if you have questions, feel free to unmute. You won't throw me off. Just raise your hand or something like that. I really think that the best presentations are the ones where we can engage with each other and really have conversation, okay? All right, so this is the active engagement part. So has anybody ever done these experiments when you were a kid where you like hold on to the light bulb and you generate the current? I see a couple heads nodding. Okay, so essentially what this is electricity flowing through a circuit, you being a human circuit. And that's really kind of the basics of bioimpedance. And so, all right, we're gonna take one step up. Have you done this? Have any of you ever had a voltmeter and measured the volts going through your body in a current this way? No. So you guys had like really messed up childhoods if you didn't get to do this. This is like super cool nerd out, like, anyway, okay. And P.S., I actually did work for Radio Shack for like a brief period of time. Okay, so essentially what this is measuring the change in the voltage as it goes from like one hand to the other hand in this figure. And this is kind of a pure sense of what bioimpedance is. So if you keep that in mind, that measuring that change in current, essentially we can step that up a little bit to this device, which is the first bioimpedance device that you'll show. And you can see that it has these little leads, and we connect this to the individual to measure the change in current. And then if you step that up one more time, you get this, which is a research or clinical grade bioimpedance device, which is typically used to measure body composition. But as I'm going to show you, I think we can use it to detect insulin resistance in premenopausal women. So let me tell you a little bit about body composition and about the way the body works, just because I know there's a few people from different fields that are not biomedical or that are not nutrition, because I think we're the only ones that do this. So if you think about the body as one compartment, you're looking at the body as a mass. But essentially, the body is made up of four components or four compartments. So fat mass, bone mass, muscle mass, and body water. And essentially, the conductive part of this, so when we look at the change in voltage, the conductive part is the muscle mass and the body water. And so bioimpedance is really passing current through these two compartments. It really isn't looking at any of the other things. And if you're in a health profession or a biomedical science, you know that most diseases have some effect on the muscle mass and the body water as well. So it kind of makes it, to me, an intriguing way to look at disease. Okay, so I'm gonna nerd out one more time. So I had this slide in my defense. This was not here last time, but I put it here because I think this is a great slide, and I think I finally figured out how to explain this. So, okay, so you can like lean in good. Okay, so bioimpedance, so this fancy scale here, you step on the scale, it takes about 75 seconds, right? So this is a lot cheaper and it's non-invasive. The woman cannot feel the current as it passes through the body. So think about electrical current going from hand to hand, hand to foot, foot to foot, all these different varieties of paths to measure the change in currents. And essentially what's happening is the current is going through the muscle, like I just showed you. And if we span that out a little bit at the cellular level, what's really happening is that current is going through the body water, it goes through the cell membrane and into the intracellular fluid and back out. So that electrical current has a ton of different interactions with the cell and with the cell membrane. And essentially, membrane capacitance, which is the measure that I look at in my research, is essentially measuring the electrical interactions at the cell membrane. So the interactions with the water, the interactions with the lipid, with the protein, and with the electrolyte gradients. And there's enough scientists here that I know we know that electrolyte gradients are really what allowed the cell to do its metabolic work, okay? So I was really excited about this cell. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm intrigued by this a lot. So the current, I guess, is not, you said that the individual cannot feel it. So that must mean it's not strong enough to cause a muscle twitch or anything like that.
No, it's alternating current. So the current that would cause the muscle switch are usually DC currents. This is an AC current, and it is a really weak current, so they wouldn't feel anything, and it wouldn't charge or change the distribution. That's DC currents, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Oh, that's a really great question, Dr. McMahon. See, I knew we had some good scientists here. That's her neuroscience background, guys. Okay, so again, membrane capacitance, and I think that's clear. And I'm really excited about this slide. It took me a lot more time than it looks like it did. Okay, so back on to the general scheduled show. All right, so essentially, I'm not sure, I think I know everybody. I don't think we have many like first year PhDs here. Okay, so I was a first year PhD and I got this idea that, you know, there was evidence to show that the electrical current in a normal person kind of looked like the one on the left, like a bright light bulb, for example. And we knew that the electrical current in a person with diabetes was kind of diminished, that conductivity was different, but we didn't know what insulin resistance looked like. And insulin resistance is kind of the gateway to diabetes. So I kind of thought, you know, maybe there's some diminished effects in insulin resistance. So I wanted to look at that. So let me just talk about insulin resistance a little bit, because I think insulin resistance is not really well understood. So I said insulin resistance is the gateway because it's really a condition that leads to several other conditions. It's not a disease in and of itself. It's not diabetes and it's not prediabetes, but it leads to those things. And so what I really find interesting is that these are the things in pink that really affect women's health. Even though women can get all of these things, right now we're really seeing these four things have a big effect: infertility, gestational diabetes, PCOS is polycystic ovary syndrome, and obesity. And in my mind, and at the time, there was evidence to show that all of these things are linked by insulin resistance. So could we use this device to kind of identify women who had these conditions or were at risk for this? So can we use it to detect insulin resistance? So I want to show you in another way what the physiology of insulin resistance looks like in women. So premenopausal women have, you know, a cacophony of problems. But again, my specific hypothesis was that it's the change in insulin resistance and extracellular potassium, the electrolyte gradients in the skeletal muscle specifically, that would allow us to affect. But just take a minute and look at the screen. These things are, this figure is really showing you that at the center of insulin resistance is often obesity, but not always. And that there are, you know, dramatic effects on metabolism and then dramatic effects on fertility. I think we don't know a lot about insulin resistance and fertility yet. So keep that in mind, that insulin resistance, again, is not a disease, but it has a dramatic effect on a lot of different parts of the body, and it is the gateway to disease, right? Okay. So I was the first year PhD student. I have no research dollars. In theory, I have no researchers that believe me or will listen to me. So I found publicly available data. So I went to the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, which I had no idea how to work with this data, and it was a challenge. But essentially, they survey thousands of people every year. They do blood work, they do body composition, they do a battery of health assessments on these people. And they had bioimpedance for a 4-year period from 1999 to 2004. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna prove that I'm right. I'm gonna pull this data and I'm gonna figure out how to use it, and I'm gonna test my hypothesis. So that's exactly what I did. So this paper, which is in press, yes, it took me that long to get this paper published. New science is not fast science. I did this paper, and essentially I ended up with about 971 healthy women. So we threw out all the women who had disease, and we just looked at the healthy women to see if the women who had insulin resistance had different membrane capacitance. So we did. We found that membrane capacitance was higher in the women with insulin resistance, and that the receiver operating characteristic curve, or the ROC curve, as you see in the center of the screen, really indicated that membrane capacitance could be a good predictor. So it kind of told us that this was worth pursuing more. So I was really excited about that. This is like my second time giving a presentation with a picture of like my author page. So I'm really excited about that. And yeah, and Obesity is not a bad journal for those of you who don't know. Okay, so let's talk about what I'm doing next, because this is the really exciting part. Okay, so we found out that insulin resistance is kind of this intermediate place where membrane capacitance is higher. So you can kind of think about it as a normal person, an insulin resistant person, and a diabetic would all look different on the light bulb test. So now what I want to know is, can we use that for women's health? Just because they look different on the light bulb test doesn't mean that we can actually use that in a clinical setting. Excuse me. So the first part of my dissertation work, yes, I'm still going on dissertation work.
Did we lose her?
Yeah, it looks like she froze
She's
up.
a little behind. Well, hopefully she gets back on. This is super cool. I want to get on one of those bioimpedance machines and see what my capacitance is.
I just think it's cool that there's a real world application for capacitance.
No kidding. Yes, says my fellow neuroscientist on Zoom. We measure capacitance when we do our recordings from neurons to give us an idea of the cell size and shape, because the more plasma membrane or lipid there is, the higher the capacitance. So I'm trying to figure out, and I wanted to ask Valene this, but Chris, how do you imagine that insulin resistance is going to change capacitance?
Yeah. So I missed the very first part, so I'm not sure. I mean,
Yeah.
I would, what it may just have to do is cell swelling, right? I mean,
Maybe.
that would be, the cell swelling would be the easiest piece. But I don't know how insulin resistance fits in with that. You know, I'm thinking more of diabetes directly. But so that's the only thought that I have at the, you know, off the top of my head, but I'm curious too.
Yeah. Well, they may not know.
Yeah. Mechanisms are hard.
Yeah. But it's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to
Sorry about that. Are you guys still there?
Yes.
Yeah.
So my Wi-Fi my internet decided it's tired of hearing about this work. Like, we do this too much. It doesn't want to hear it anymore. Okay, let me try to jump back in where I was. Sorry about that.
Nope, no worries.
I'm almost done. Okay, let me share my screen. Let me do this. Okay.
Can I come over to the
Sorry.
lab and jump on one of those machines?
Yes, you may, anytime.
And you measure my capacitance?
Capacitance, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And can we like put it on like the grad school website that I got to measure your capacitance? Because that would be like awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I think I got this. Yeah, so we can also do a lot of other cool things like sidebar on bioimpedance. It's kind of awesome. So we can measure your body fat percentage. We can measure body water. We can measure how much water you have inside your cells and outside your cells. We can do a lot of cool stuff. With bioimpedance. All right, we're going to do this. Mask and all, we're going to do this. Okay, I'm super excited about that. This was so worth it. This is why you always have to say yes to things. Okay. All right, so back to my dissertation. So we're going to look at mechanism. We're going to look at validation. And then we're going to look at, who is we? I am going to look at the reliability of this method. So is it consistent? Is it reliable? All these things we need to know in order to use it in a clinical setting. And then the last and final aim, the only one that my committee is excited about, is can we use it to identify women who have polycystic ovary syndrome or related infertility? So yeah, last time I came here, I was begging for participants, but COVID-19 decided no more participants for you back in March. So now we are done with that study as well. So it's all done, and now it's just stressing me out. Okay. So let me show you guys some of the results. I don't know why that was there. Okay, let's see. So why did I show that? Okay, so this is a validation. This is the validation figure. I don't know why this is here. Okay, so some of the results. This is AIM-2. And basically what we're showing is that on the first figure on the left, at the bottom on the x-axis, is the insulin sensitivity measured by the gold standard, the hyperinsulinic euglycemic clamp, which is a mouthful, but essentially it's the one that the scientists like. And on the y-axis is the log of membrane capacitance. And essentially what I'm showing is that there's a strong association between my bioimpedance measure and the one that the scientists like. So essentially we found what we expected, that there's a negative association. And then on the right, we're showing again that there's an association between insulin, between membrane capacitance and the insulin resistance measure that we commonly use in epidemiology. This one just uses fasting blood samples. So we've now replicated the work and shown it that it works against the gold standard. So yay, this is like the big, like I take my bow, this is what got me the money. Okay, so then I wanted to see how it compares, membrane capacitance compares to the other measures. So just kind of a simple overview of this slide is that at the top, I'm showing you the non-invasive measurements. So membrane capacitance and BMI, these are the cheap and free measures to detect insulin resistance or to determine whether someone has insulin resistance. And at the bottom, all of these things require a blood draw. And we compared them to the gold standard. And essentially, what we found was that all of the things that require blood were no better than the membrane capacitance. And membrane capacitance was better than BMI. So it's better than the other cheap non-invasive measure, and it's about the same as the things that require blood. So this is really promising. And I apologize if you hear my dogs barking in the background. It's time to go out. Okay, so this kind of told me that I was on the right track. So 2 out of 2 so far, we're doing good. All right, the mechanism part. So I told you guys that I think it's potassium. And so kind of what we're showing on this slide, just as a refresher, is that the movement of potassium inside the cell and outside the cell is kind of regulated by potassium, by insulin, excuse me. And so my hypothesis was that this doesn't work in insulin resistant people. So potassium outside the cell in the blood and the serum is going to be higher. And that's exactly what we found. We found this in the NHANES data with the 971 women. And I've also replicated that now in 2 different cohorts on campus. So we know that even if this isn't the complete mechanism, this has something to do with it. Yay, so 3 out of 3. Okay, and then reliability, right? So reliability is just what it sounds like. Wanted to know if I take a measurement of capacitance, if I put Dr. McMahon on at 8:30 and I put her on at 8:45, is that measurement going to be the same? Because if that measurement isn't the same, I can't use it. So this is one of the questions I have. Another question that I have is if I put a woman on early in the menstrual cycle and then I put her on late in the menstrual cycle, are those measurements going to be consistent? Because when you're dealing with women, you have to consider that. And so other factors that I'm really interested in that nobody else cares about is that you have to consider blood flow, you have to consider the temperature in the room of the skin and the body temperature, and then also the body position. So we did a lot of different anatomical movements. I took a lot of additional measurements that nobody else cares about. Nobody else, mostly being my committee. So yeah, so this is the second question about reliability. And then the third question is consistency. I'm looking for a clock. Okay, I'm almost done. Consistency between devices. So wanted to see if the electrode device on the left is the same as the big fancy, which I don't really like, device that we have in the clinic. So reliability and consistency, that's, I don't have any data slides here, but I do want to tell you that the results are really great, like really great on reliability. I haven't looked at the consistency for the entire sample, but when I sampled in February, it was great. So I'm really excited to have those to present in my dissertation defense. And so plugs for joining dissertation defense. And then lastly, I wanted to just kind of stop, and I'm going to slow this down and just say, you know, there is evidence to show that bioimpedance can be used to detect infertility or fertility. And this is not my paper. And this was published, and this is one of the drivers of me looking at this, was they kind of found that you could do it with a very rudimentary device. And there are a few commercial sellers that use bioimpedance in their devices. This one on the right is the I think it's Be Fertile. This is one of the best-selling devices, and it actually uses bioimpedance in it, but you would never know. So I'm really excited to see if we can identify women with insulin resistance related to infertility with this device. And so I have I was aiming for 100. I have 65 women that we're going to run those analyses in, and I'll let everyone know how that turns out. So just to wrap this up, technical difficulties and all, I really want you to stop and think about every time you go to the doctor, you step on a scale. Most of us are women here, and even the men, but every time you go to the doctor, you step on the scale and they get nothing. Your weight tells nothing about you. But in my mind, if that scale were a bioimpedance device, we might know that you need to be tested for insulin resistance, that you have the gateway drug to the gateway disease, to diabetes or infertility, or that you even need to be screened. And this takes 75 seconds on this device. There are some that are cheaper. So this is just replacing an instrument with what you already have. And a lot of clinicians already have this. So I'm really glad that you guys are taking time to listen to me on this. I apologize for the technical difficulties, but that's my presentation. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. All right, questions. I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
The bioimpedance must vary over the day-night cycle, the circadian rhythm. That's a guess. Is that true?
So there are no studies that have done that.
Oh,
and I was really surprised. And that was why I wanted to just do the 30 minutes apart. I would assume so, because fluid changes and all of that. Yeah. But I have not seen a study that's looked at that.
Well, I think we should look at that. And the reason is that, you know, there are, you know, and again, from a neuroscience perspective, but even from cardiovascular disease, a lot of diseases impact circadian rhythm. And so, for example, Alzheimer's disease, schizophrenia, circadian rhythm is altered. And the thinking is that those changes are happening early. Sleep disturbances are happening early. And if, you know, if bioimpedance can reflect that, you know, a change or lack thereof of normal circadian rhythms, I think that could be super useful. And with related to heart disease, you know, we now are appreciating that, and this is not my field, I've just heard my colleagues at UAB talk about this, that blood pressure has to go down at night. And if blood pressure doesn't go down at night for an individual, that increases the risk of stroke and myocardial infarction. And so most of us, all of us, go to the doctor during the day and we get our blood pressure checked, and our blood pressure can be fine during the day. But the problem is our blood pressure doesn't decrease at night. And for the African-American population, that population's at greater risk for missing that issue with blood pressure because it's normally tested during the day. And you know, in families where there's a lot of heart disease and, you know, measuring it at night is the time that it should be measured. And physicians are just starting to appreciate that. So again, back to the bioelectric changes over the day-night cycle, that could be really informative, I think, or I wonder.
I think that's a fabulous like thought. And even just because a lot of the like Fitbits and things are adding little bioimpedance sensors, and even just like, the bathroom scales that you buy that tell you have this much % body fat, they're bioimpedance devices. So you could step on that at night. You could have that at night. So if it's shown, that'd be a fabulous thing to look at. There may be some engineers that have looked at it, but I haven't seen it, anything like that. But that's a great thing.
Other questions?
Yeah. Okay. This is Chris. I'm curious. How specific is it? You're looking at whole body bioimpedance. Can you zero in on? It's almost an extension of Lori's question, but can you zero in on a specific body part? In different contexts. Are we assuming that the osmolarity and that everything is exactly the same? And I may have missed this, throughout the entire body, or are there region-specific areas, and is it possible to test that?
Yes, that's a great question. So if you look at I don't know if you guys can still see my slides. I just backed up a little bit. So you can look at segment-specific bioimpedance. So like the biggest example is like on the right, this is a segmental device that breaks the body up into 5 components. So each arm, the leg, each arm and the trunk, each arm, each leg, and the trunk. But you can get even more specific than that. I've seen devices that look at a particular area of the leg, and it's based on where the electrodes are placed. So the engineers get really fancy with this. So if you were looking at something specific, that could be done.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Other questions? Don't be shy.
This is Mikhail. I have a question, probably just because I'm a guy.
Okay.
So when you were doing the ovulatory cycle, and you were saying with the fluid loss in the body, it would change. Does that change are you, I guess, experiencing a dramatic change when a woman has her flow?
Yeah, so that was what I hypothesized. So before my study, there are several studies that had mixed results on that. So the concept that you're talking about is like that women have bloating or increased hydration during like the late part of the menstrual cycle. And there are studies that say that influences bioimpedance, and there are studies that say it doesn't. But they all use different devices, and they all kind of have different methods. So I wasn't sure. They also don't look at membrane capacitance. So membrane capacitance is a special measure. So my data shows that it doesn't matter. I haven't looked at the electrolytes yet. I just got that data back from UAB Hospital, ran like a full electrolyte panel on me. So I'll have that in both parts of the menstrual cycle. But my data showed that membrane capacitance is the same whether you were no matter across the menstrual cycle.
Sweet.
Yeah. I thought you were going to ask me why we didn't look at the men. That's usually the male question.
No, I mean, if I wanted to do a study on men, I just do it myself. But
Okay.
No, I don't mean no disrespect. I'm just saying you're a woman, so I expect you to be working with women.
Family here is cool. I got it.
Other questions?
I had a question. So you did a really great job. Thanks. Your engagement is really good with the audience. So my question is, it's kind of related to the electrolyte thing too. So do you think the hydration state or electrolyte balance is going to affect the readings that you see? And then also, are you aware of other like ion channel disorders that maybe this could relate to?
Good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So bioimpedance is kind of commercially and clinically accepted to look at hydration status. There's a lot of different conditions that we look at this, like people being malnourished. There are certain cardiovascular diseases that this is being used for right now. This is very commonly used for renal failure, to monitor renal failure and the treatment with dialysis, which is another reason why I had to find like really healthy people, because I only wanted to look at the potential for insulin resistance. So I think, and based on what I've seen in my data, is that there are several factors that influence this. One of those factors is the changes in potassium gradients. And that's because insulin is the primary regulator of potassium in the skeletal muscle. And so what I found was that in the people who had insulin resistance, their bicarbonate was different, their sodium to potassium ratio is different, and their sodium chloride ratio is different. But I think that's all a derivative of the changes in potassium. But I would love to get in there and really do those studies the right way. I also didn't have the equipment to measure hydration status outside of bioimpedance. So I don't have like a rigorous measure of hydration status. So that's a limitation of this work. And me just being a grad student and not really understanding how to design a good study, you know. So I think that there's more work to be done in that area if someone were to pick this up and go with it.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah, great question. Any final questions?
I have another question.
Go ahead. That's what this is about.
So what, I don't know how to flag it. Where do you see this to be very beneficial in what area? Like if there was more research done, where do you see this would be a great help in what area?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a few places where I think this could be valuable. What's near and dear to my heart, I'm really interested in women's perinatal health. So I'm really interested in pregnancy and really interested in fertility. So the reason that I picked up bioimpedance was not really because I thought it was so cool. It was because bioimpedance is safe in pregnancy, and it's one of the very few things that is safe in pregnancy. And because it's so sensitive to fluid changes, and we know nothing about pregnancy, like we know zero about pregnancy relative to other conditions, I really wanted to know, could I look at pregnancy? So for example, I have some data in about 30 women that shows if you look at membrane capacitance in the first trimester, you can predict who's going to get gestational diabetes in the third trimester, right? It's only 30 women and it's a very small sample. And in order to even get it published, I probably would need, 5 times the number of women. But in my mind, what if, right? The possibilities. What if we could detect who was going to get preeclampsia or gestational hypertension because of these fluid dynamic changes or the electrolyte changes? There's some studies that also show women who get gestational diabetes have the same potassium imbalances in the first trimester. So before they get the glucose, the dysregulation of glucose, they have some electrolyte changes. So I really would love to see it go there. I think as an early career investigator, I don't have the social capital or the real capital to do that work, but I would love to see it go there. I also am interested in infertility, which is what I did with in the second part of my study here, was really trying to see if the women who had PCOS, so I'm gonna wrap this up, but so of women who have PCOS, which is a terrible condition, they're like 15 times more likely to have infertility. The ones who have insulin resistance have the most severe phenotype, and it affects their quality of life the most, but not everybody has insulin resistance. So what if we could identify the women who have insulin resistance before they go through years of various useless treatments? Because that's what happens right now. They go through several years of different treatments that don't work, and they're like, oh, you must have insulin resistance. So what if we could just put them on a bioimpedance device and save them some time and some energy? That's really where I would love to see this go. And that I might have the capital to do because I have the pilot data. So that's kind of what I would love to see from this.
Those are both amazing. And I guess I would just say, Valene, your first project about pregnancy and preeclampsia, you have preliminary data there too. And I think we need to help you find a place to get some grant funding. for, for both of those projects. And as an early stage investigator, I mean, maybe, in your next phase after you graduate, a K award or something.
Yeah, I love that. I love
Yeah. That should be possible.
Okay,
We already have some preliminary data.
Okay, we're gonna talk about it some more.
Yes, yes. And, maybe you can find a collaborator over in OBGYN. A physician over there. Anyway.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I love to continue talking about it. I mean, just even figuring this out, at this, as a PhD student, it's hard to get money. Like, I got the Innovator Award to do this work, but it was just hard to even find that grant that I'm eligible for. So I love to talk to you about that more.
Yeah, well, and maybe you can't do that right now as a PhD student, but you could do it in the next phase of your career. Just keep those ideas in your back pocket. Finish your dissertation and then take those ideas with you. Yeah, they're amazing. Yeah. Okay, help me thank Valene. Great talk.
Thank
Great
you.
ideas, great talk. Love it.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you for tuning in to Discoveries in the Making. Hope to see you all back next month. The second Tuesday of the month at 6 o'clock, right here on Zoom.
Good. We'll see you then.
Thanks, Kim, for organizing. Bye, everybody. Thanks a lot. Have a nice night.
Thank you.